A Nuzlocke is a challenge that was originally created for the Pokemon games. Every time that a Pokemon were to faint in battle, that Pokemon would be considered permanently dead for the entire run. When I thought about doing a Nuzlocke for this channel, one thing stuck out to me: the idea of permanently dying across a long run. I had done this for other games in the past, but I had never attempted a Nuzlocke for the FNAF games. Well, today is that day. No! Fuck! Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Bones5 YouTube channel on YouTube. Now, you might be thinking that a Nuzlocke would consist of beating all of the main games in a row, or maybe a FNAF World Nuzlocke, but no, I really bit off more than I could chew this time. I promised this would be the hardest FNAF challenge that I had ever done on this channel, and without a doubt, this is. In this video, we're going to beat every single max mode from FNAF 1 to 6 in a row without dying. This challenge demands absolute perfection and mastery of every game all in a row. Everybody, welcome to the FNAF Max Mode Gauntlet, better known as the Fnaflocke Challenge. Let's go over the rules for this challenge. We must complete the max modes of the first 6 FNAF games in a row without dying. We can do these in any order, but if we make it through 5 of the 6 games and die on the last one, we must go the whole way back to the first game. The max modes are 420 in FNAF 1, 1020 in FNAF 2, Aggressive Nightmare in FNAF 3, 420 in FNAF 4, 1020 in Sister Location, and just Saturday in FNAF 6 because there really isn't a max mode for that game. There are also some banned strategies that I would like to address. First, the FGP glitch is banned. This involves pulling up the cameras for a short duration of time to trick Springtrap's jumpscare timer and cheese Aggressive Nightmare. The -3 glitch in FNAF 2 is also banned. This involves tricking the game into thinking that you're viewing 2 cameras at once, which completely stalls the 3 withered animatronics that would normally cause blackouts. The Foxy glitch and manually lowering the FPS in FNAF 1 is also banned. And finally, using a macro for lolbit in Sister Location is also banned. With the rules out of the way, the first question to answer is what order should we play these max modes in? We're going to be attempting this challenge many times, so logically, we're going to want to always place the modes that we fail more often on earlier in the run. I'll go into detail for the strategies that we use for each game as we get to them throughout the challenge, but for now, I'll just give a brief rationale as for why I'm placing them in this order. For our first game in the run, I chose FNAF 3's Aggressive Nightmare. Out of all of these max modes, a perfect player would lose the most on FNAF 3. Because we've banned FGP, it's extremely difficult to get consistent wins on Aggressive Nightmare. Springtrap can just choose to not listen to our audio lures, enter vents on a reboot, or just straight up be way too fast for us to catch. Other times, he can literally just be straight up unfair. So yeah, this one's going first. Dude, what do I even say to that? Bro, what? For the second game in the run, I chose FNAF 6. Honestly, this game is considered to be much easier than the games that follow it, but I just personally struggle with FNAF 6. Out of all of the mainline games, this is the one that I never truly mastered, so it's better to get it done earlier than later. For the third game in the run, I chose Sister Location's 1020 or Golden Freddy very hard. Now, some of you who have beaten 1020 may wonder why it's this early in the order. Sure, skill-wise it's pretty difficult, but it's known to be very consistent once you have it mastered. And I would agree, usually I have around a 75% win rate on this mode. However, this is only when I'm warmed up. Because we're constantly switching from game to game in this challenge, we want each game to take as little adjustment as possible, and Sister Location's controls happen to be the most different out of all of these games. For one, our cursor is now a custom cursor that scrolls the screen in a different way and moves at different speeds than the normal cursor. We're also forced to use a keyboard for the doors, cameras, and lolbit, making for a very different experience compared to the rest of the games, so it's better that we do this mode earlier on. I believe that I have mastered FNAF 2 more than any other game in the series. I've beaten FNAF 2's 1020 up to 4 times in a row on certain occasions, and I see it as one of the easier modes for this challenge, so I'm placing it on the later half of the order. After FNAF 2, we have FNAF 4's 420. I'll explain in detail what makes this so much easier than the rest of the games, but just know for now that our only real threat in this game is Nightmare. And even then, we also have a special strategy for him. Then, last in the order, we have FNAF 1. FNAF 1's 420 is by far the easiest and most consistent max mode out of all of these, so I'll be doing it last in the run. Now, here's how I'm going to be structuring this video. Instead of the usual nights 1 through 7, I'll be recounting my experience in the days that it took me to complete this challenge, and whenever we reach a new furthest game in the order, I'll explain the strategy that I'm using for that max mode. With the rules in the order out of the way, let's get into day 1. Because FNAF 3 is the first game that we attempt in this challenge, I have had a lot of attempts at this game, and I can confidently say that this aggressive nightmare strategy is the best possible strategy you can use without FGP manipulation. The first thing to understand about this strategy is exactly when to use the audio lure. Now, let me ask you a question. When do you consider a run to be over in FNAF 3? You could say it's when you die, but 99% of the time, when Springtrap runs past the window, the run is dead. This means that luring Springtrap anywhere else except away from the window is entirely pointless. So, we know that the only time we're ever going to use the audio lure is once Springtrap gets past Cam 2. But Springtrap has another way of making the run completely dead, entering an unsealed vent. We're going to need to track exactly where Springtrap is throughout the entire night, and always have whatever vent is closest to him sealed. You cannot rely on sealing vents based on reaction. Sometimes, with mildly bad RNG, Springtrap can make it through the vent even if you started sealing the vent the moment he entered. This is where the majority of FNAF 3's challenge and RNG comes into play. We now have to know exactly where Springtrap is for the entire night. Leaving even a 3-second window open gives him enough time to enter a vent and instantly end the run. Luckily, we have some tools at our disposal. Our first trick is using guesswork. You see, we only really care about a few select cameras. Every camera that doesn't have a vent directly connected to it is completely irrelevant, and can be grouped with the nearest vent camera. So let's redraw our camera map a bit. Cams 10 and 9 both have vents directly connected to them, so they stay as they are. Cam 8 has no vents connected to it, and is a connection point between Cam 9, 7, and 5, which all have vents connected to them. You can group Cam 8 in with any of these cameras, but I chose to group it in with Cam 7. For our purposes, Cam 6 is functionally the exact same as Cam 7, so we group it in with Cam 7. Cam 5 is functionally the exact same as Cams 3 and 4, aside from one minor difference we'll talk about later. So we group these cameras with Cam 5, and Cam 2 has a vent connected to it, so that remains. Now, with our new map, we only care if Springtrap is in any of these cameras or camera groups, and we want to seal their respective vents once he enters. I'll now be referring to Cams 8, 7, and 6 as the Cam 7 group, and Cams 5, 4, and 3 as the Cam 5 group. With our new map, I can now talk about the second part of our strategy, sound cues. This danger sound will play whenever Springtrap enters the Cam 5 group, and it'll play distinctly louder when he enters Cam 2. So we can immediately recognize if Springtrap is in the Cam 5 group or Cam 2 based on sound alone. Springtrap won't emit any recognizable sound cues from the Cam 7 group or Cams 9 and 10, but we can use guesswork to deduce where he is. Frequently check Cams 9 and 10 and seal their respective vents if he's there. If Springtrap isn't in Cams 9 or 10 and there's no danger sound playing, then he must be in the Cam 7 group, and therefore the Cam 7 vent should be sealed. Essentially, to tell where Springtrap is, you only ever need to check cameras 9 and 10. Everywhere else can be determined by deductive reasoning or sound cues. However, Phantom Freddy will also emit the exact same danger sound as the Cam 5 group. So if Phantom Freddy is present, begin checking Cam 5 in addition to Cams 9 and 10. With this strategy, you'll not only know where Springtrap is, but you'll also never be attacked by Phantom Mangle, Chica, or Puppet, as they're all part of camera groups, meaning you never actually have to look at their cameras. Now that we know how to find Springtrap, the rest of the night is simply reliant on getting good enough RNG to survive. Though, there are a few specific cases that I should address. Whenever Springtrap enters a sealed vent, reboot any systems that may need rebooted. You get 2 audio lures before it requires a reboot, and rebooting for 1 audio lure while Springtrap is in a sealed vent is more than worth it. If your camera system goes out, don't bother rebooting if Springtrap is in the Cam 5 group or in Cam 2. As we already discussed, you can use sound cues to know exactly where he is without the cameras, and going for a reboot here is far too risky. Instead, wait until Springtrap enters a sealed vent in your full-on audio lures, or Springtrap leaves the Cam 5 group and moves into the Cam 7 group. Then seal the Cam 7 vent and reboot the cameras, as you'll need them to determine if Springtrap is in the Cam 7 group or Cams 9 and 10. Another way to make this strategy slightly better is for when Springtrap is in the Cam 5 group. You see, when Springtrap makes it through the Cam 5 vent, he'll come out in front of the glass and can still be lured to Cam 2, making this the only vent where if Springtrap gets through, he isn't already past the glass. So I recommend keeping the Cam 2 vent sealed once Springtrap enters the Cam 5 group, then repeatedly cancelling the animation of sealing the Cam 5 vent. That way, if you see static in the Cam 5 vent camera, just don't cancel the animation and you'll be able to seal the vent on Springtrap. But if he happens to move past the Cam 5 group and into Cam 2, you won't need to waste any time sealing that vent. If Springtrap manages to get past the glass, flip up the maintenance panel every 10 seconds. This messes with Springtrap's movement pathing a bit and will keep him stalled a little longer than normal. Usually, if you make it to 5 AM, you should survive. Also, note that Springtrap won't enter any events until 1 AM, so the first minute of the night is just maintenance panel simulator until Springtrap gets past Cam 2. This strategy allowed me to get 3 aggressive nightmare wins in a row, which I have posted on the second channel. However, even with this perfect strategy, Springtrap's RNG is still really brutal. I'm convinced I have the worst luck in FNAF games out of anyone ever, because given a single chance to not listen to the audio lure, which is a 1 in 7 by the way, Springtrap will sit his fat ass right down in front of the glass and not move a muscle. Unfortunately, even with this perfect strat, we still took a shitload of deaths on FNAF 3, that's why it's so early in this order. I'd say on average, about 30% of runs on day 1 made it out of FNAF 3, but even if they made it through FNAF 3, they were sure to end in the next game. Remember in my FNAF 6 guide video when I said FNAF 6 was my favorite game? How inexplicably stupid I was. Playing this game for this challenge sucks. See, I've heard some people say that FNAF 6's max modes are the easiest out of all of the FNAF games, even easier than 420 and FNAF 1. You know what I've decided that? Bullshit! FNAF 6 might not require much mechanical skill, but to hear the vent sounds behind you with the fan and advertising tasks on is much harder than people give it credit for. In FNAF 6, there are 3 different types of tasks that we need to complete. These are supply, advertisement, and maintenance. We're going to always go for the advertisements first. Reason being, they're the longest, but they also play this loud ass printer sound that we can't avoid. In case you haven't played FNAF 6 in a while, the way that we defend against animatronics in this game is by listening for really quiet vent sounds, then turning to whatever side the sound came from to fend off any animatronics. But because we have this loud ass printer noise that we have to deal with, it's much harder to hear any threats. Again with you. So we're always going to try and get the advertising tasks out of the way first. Once the first task is done, we'll start the cycle that will repeat for the rest of the night. You see, in addition to the animatronics, there's also a temperature mechanic that we have to worry about. It doesn't matter where this temperature is, so long as it doesn't go above 120 degrees. This results in an instant blackout and a failure of the night. However, I've found the best way to both keep track of the animatronics and keep the office cool is through this cycle. Before starting the first task, turn on the silent ventilation. You always want to make sure that whenever a task is in progress, you always have silent ventilation active. The motion detector and audio lure tools will both stop when the terminal is shut off, but silent ventilation remains active. While the task is in progress, choose a side to turn to and hold that side. If you hear any sounds from behind you, immediately turn to the opposite side and hold that side. Once the task is done, indicated by a quiet clicking sound, turn both the terminal and fan off without turning away from the side that you're holding. Once you see that both the terminal and fan have fully powered off, indicated by the fully gray icon showing up in the bottom left corner, turn to whatever side you last heard vent sounds on. Remember that the audio of these vent sounds pans in different directions. If you're facing the vent where the sound came from, it'll play in both ears. If the sound is in the vent behind you, it'll play in the opposite ear of where you're facing. Once you've turned to a vent, wait and hold in that position for at least 4 seconds. You see, when both the fan and terminal are off, the flashlight is secretly buffed. Normally, your flashlight can only fend off animatronics in the vents directly next to your office. But with both the terminal and fan off, the flashlight's range will extend to the vent and the room next to the vent. In addition, when an animatronic is cleared from the vents or the room, it will send them all the way back to the upper corners of the map. The reason that we hold for 4 seconds is because animatronics will only be cleared from the vents on 4-second intervals. Once you've determined that there are no animatronics left in the vents, turn both the terminal and fan back on. Then quickly flash the motion detector to read the positions of the animatronics. As long as no one's right next to you, switch to silent ventilation and start the next task. Once you've started a task, turn off the fan in order to hear better, and then turn to whatever side you hear noise from. If you don't hear noises throughout the entirety of the task, feel free to bang out another one. Though if you're facing a vent and you hear sounds from 2 vents at once, turn everything off and pray that you don't die. At this point, only RNG can save you. Repeating this cycle will usually result in you completing the night in 5 to 7 minutes. But I can't guarantee that you'll win every time. Like FNAF 3, in FNAF 6 you can sometimes play perfectly, but just straight up lose.
No! Dude, that was a 1 in 10. That was a 1 in 10, bro. That was a 1 in 10. You shouldn't be able to hear me. Oh.
This is why this game was so early in the order. FNAF 3 and FNAF 6 were definitely the titans of the early days of this challenge. Think of these games as the RNG gauntlets that you have to fight through in order to get to the more skill-based games later on. And how RNG-based these games were was really showing on day 1.
Hi.
Dog, what? Dog, what? What? What is the play? What is the play? Oh my god. I had 4 dots, motherfucker. Whoa. What could I have done?
Attempt after attempt would just end with Springtrap not listening to me, and if a run somehow made it past him, something in FNAF 6 could just go wrong. Within the first few hours of attempts, I was already starting to get really annoyed with this challenge. Throughout all of day 1, I really struggled to get past 3 and 6. So I thought to change up the order. Maybe instead of doing 3, 6, 5 for the first 3, I could do 3, 5, 6. I ended up getting an aggressive nightmare win, then moved on to Sister Locations 1020. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on Sister Locations 1020 like I did with FNAF 3 and 6, because there isn't really any different strategies or playstyles for 1020. You just have to be good at the game, but I will give a few hints that make the night a bit easier. First, Ballora can be extremely annoying, and it can seem like she's camping your door sometimes, but Ballora only runs her check to leave the office on 5-second intervals. So you can wait when she's right outside your door until the next 5-second interval, briefly close the door, then open it right away and she'll be gone. Also, make sure that you're checking Funtime Foxy within 5 seconds. This leaves no room for him to have any movement opportunities. While Sister Location is hard to get used to coming off of the much slower paced FNAF 3 and 6, I was able to clutch out a 1020 win first try. Despite this mode being regarded as the hardest of these 6, it's also the most consistent and skill based. A perfect player can always win Sister Locations 1020 no matter what, and I was actually able to pull it off. In this run, I had already taken out the most luck based mode and the most precise. The stakes were high. If I could get past FNAF 6, there wouldn't be much to stop me. But with stakes comes nerves. Stakes make me nervous, but they also make everyone in this pizzeria super angry because my god, I was getting pressed this night. By the time I was on my last task, I had spent 9 whole minutes in here. All I had to do was clutch out the last task and I was on to the much easier half of the run. No! Literally the last turn to log off of the computer. This destroyed my morale for day 1. I really only had 1 run left in me after this. Somehow, I had made it past 3, 6, and 5. From here on out, I was in my comfort zone. I was literally born playing FNAF 2, and 4 and 1 are completely free. I booted up FNAF 2 and started running 1020 using the classic shooter 25 strat. 26 seconds, no blackout. Okay, that's fine, whatever. Check the left vent, Balloon Boy is there. Okay, you know what? That's fine. I'm calm. Check the right vent, Toy Bonnie is there. Man, y'all really want me dead, but I'm cool, I'm chill. This is my game. I don't get nervous playing FNAF 2. Wait until the next 2-second interval, flash Foxy, pull up the cams, and whine for 7 ticks. As written. Simple. Done this a million times.
What? What the f? What? No. This is my best game. Dude, no. No. Oh my god, no. That was a 2. That was a 2 and I was holding. What the fuck? Oh my god, I was past the big 3. Dude.
As you can see, I am mildly surprised. You know why? Because that death is quite literally mathematically impossible. If you think you have the worst luck in video games, I beg to differ. Let me explain the stupidest death in FNAF 2 history. Before we explain why I died, let's first talk about why I was so surprised. Foxy's kill timer is defined by this equation. This D variable is the time that Foxy has been sitting in the hallway without being flashed, counting up by 1 every second. Once this equation becomes true, which can only happen on 5-second intervals, Foxy will be marked as got you, and the next time you flash the hallway or on the next 10-second interval, Foxy will jump scare you. Anytime that you flash Foxy when he's in the hallway and the got you flag is not active, D is reset to 0. The D variable is also paused during blackouts. Now, something else to note is how the flashlight works. The flashlight can only be turned on and off on 1-second intervals. So if you flash the flashlight at 36.01 seconds for only 1 frame, the game will still see the flashlight is on until 37 seconds, even though it might not be visually displayed that way. For this reason, Foxy's D variable is always reset on the next second interval. So if you flash at 36.01 seconds, D will reset at 37, because that's when the flashlight turns off. So let's watch the footage back and plug in our time into the equation. Our flashlight is on when the timer is above 42 seconds. So Foxy's equation should count up as a 0 on 43, a 1 on 44, a 2 on 45, then the camera is dropped before 46. Remember that D is paused during blackouts, so D should stay at 2 until I flash Foxy. Because the lowest number that Foxy can generate is a 21 and it's compared to 17, in the worst case scenario, a D value of 4 would result in death. But with D at 2, it should be impossible for me to die to Foxy even with the worst possible RNG. So how and why did this happen? This is where it gets really dumb. The reason that Foxy's interval resets on the next second is because of a really strange quirk in the game's code. You see, whenever a blackout occurs, Foxy's kill interval is offset by 1 frame. For example, let's say we flash Foxy at 22 seconds into the night, meaning a blackout has not occurred yet. The game will add D by 1 at 23 seconds exactly. Now, imagine I got a blackout at 26 seconds, and we flash Foxy again at 32 seconds. But instead of D being added by 1 at 33 seconds flat, it's added at 32.984 seconds. 33 seconds minus 1 frame, because it's offset by 1 frame. But remember, the flashlight doesn't turn off until the next second interval, so the flashlight actually turns off at 33 seconds, 1 frame later than when D was added to Foxy's equation. Because this equation will always round up to the next second, we get an extra second to work with. Basically, Foxy gets nerfed by 1 second after the first blackout. Okay, well, I got a blackout. Right here, Toy Bonnie attacks me. You know what's funny? Toy Bonnie's blackout is the only blackout that doesn't do this. But even then, I should be okay. In this case, D would just be 3 instead of 2, which means I'm still safe in all cases. However, rewind back to the very start of the run. You see that? I started my timer 15 frames later than when the night started. Now fast forward to when I dropped my cameras into the blackout. 45.89, 11 frames away from 46 seconds. Adding those 15 frames to 45.89 gets us a true timer value of 46.14, over the 46-second interval. And wouldn't you know it, Foxy happened to roll a 0 in his random number, a 1 in 5 chance on top of all of that, and I died. I honestly can't even with this dude. After I learned why this happened, I was done for day one. My motivation was killed. There is no way I could play any more of these games for the rest of this day, but I was hopeful. I had already made it to FNAF 2 within the first day of the challenge, and considering that FNAF 2 was over halfway into the Fnaflocke, this challenge shouldn't be too bad, right? Day 2 was when the RNG gauntlet was really showing how difficult it could be. Let's separate the 6 games that we have currently. I'm going to call these the Big 4. FNAF 3 and FNAF 6 both have RNG involved that can make these much harder. Sister Location is skill-wise the hardest max mode here, and FNAF 2 1020 is pretty consistent when mastered, but for an unlucky player, it can always have some stupid RNG that can make the night harder. However, I did make a bit of progress today. For the first time, I managed to actually get some runs into FNAF 2, so I'll explain the FNAF 2 strategy here. If you aren't aware of the basic Shooter 25 strategy, here's what it is. Essentially, this timer will determine when we should wind the box and put the mask on to trigger blackouts. Earlier I explained how Foxy works, but this strategy is built to perfectly counteract him. On every digit ending in 2, starting at 22 seconds, pull up the cameras and wind for 7 ticks or 3.5 seconds. Then at every digit ending in 6, drop the cameras and put the Freddy mask on immediately. From here, there are different cases that you'll have to deal with. Luckily, there is a way to flowchart all of them. We have case 1, which is when there's a blackout and Toy Bonnie is not present afterwards. Case 2, when we have a blackout and Toy Bonnie is present afterwards. Case 3, when there's no blackout but Toy Bonnie is present. Case 4, when there's no blackout and Toy Bonnie is not present but a different vent animatronic is. And case 5, when there is no blackout and nobody is present. Case 1 is the easiest case to deal with. If you drop the camera and Withered Bonnie, Chica, Freddy, or Toy Freddy is there to give you a blackout, great, that's what we want. Let them do their blackout, but once it's done, hold the mask on for an extra 0.5 seconds. You see, all the left vent animatronics and Mangle are guaranteed to leave after a full 5 seconds with the mask on, and blackouts last exactly 5 seconds. But the animation of pulling the cameras down and putting the mask on doesn't count towards those 5 seconds, so waiting the extra 0.5 seconds will prevent these animatronics from ever attacking you. Because this is case 1, Toy Bonnie isn't in the right vent, so simply flash at 2 seconds, pull up the cameras, and wind as normal. I should also mention here that instead of flashing the flashlight by tapping control, hold the flashlight on as you pull up the cameras. That way, you'll have the flashlight on for as long as possible if you happen to be desynced with Foxy. Case 2 is the exact same as case 1, except Toy Bonnie is in the right vent after you deal with the blackout animatronic. Wait until around 4.5 seconds on the timer, flash the hall, and pray that Toy Bonnie leaves the vent as early as possible. He has a 1/2 chance to leave the vent on every 0.5 second interval. But remember that I am the unluckiest FNAF player in the entire world.
No! 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 God!
Something else to remember about Toy Bonnie is that you don't need to wait the extra 0.5 seconds during his blackout, as he can only leave the vent after the mask is fully on, meaning you can leave your cursor at the bottom of the screen to take the mask off as early as possible. Case 3 is when you drop your cameras and there's no blackout, but Toy Bonnie is in the right vent. If there is no blackout at all, the first thing you should do is check the right vent. We actually want Toy Bonnie to be here, as his blackout can replace the normal office animatronic blackout in the cycle. Once you see him, throw your mask on immediately and the time should roughly line up with the normal office cycle. If you pull up the cameras a bit late, or Toy Bonnie takes a bit to get out of the vent, just wind for a bit less to compensate. Case 4 is when there's no blackout, Toy Bonnie isn't there, and there's someone in the left vent. This case is extremely precise to deal with. The moment you see an animatronic in the left vent, flash the hall and throw on the mask. You want to keep the mask on for a full 5 seconds. But there's one issue. If you happen to have the mask on at the next 3.33 second interval and Toy Bonnie was in the back vent, he can move in and start his blackout. If he does this, you are guaranteed to die to Foxy. So you always want to make sure that you pull the mask up before the next 3.33 second interval. Now, you might wonder why I just said a 3.33 second interval instead of a 5 second interval. For some reason, Toy Bonnie moves into the vent blind spot on a 200 frame counter instead of a 5 second interval. So you have to make sure that you don't trigger a Toy Bonnie blackout. Then, once the 5 seconds are up, you should be able to continue winding as normal. Case 5 is the most complicated. When you drop your cameras to no blackout and no one is in the vents. The moment you see that no one is in the vents, pull up your cameras and start winding, but make sure you drop them before the next 10-second interval. The withered animatronics in Toy Freddy can only force your cameras down on 10-second intervals, and doing this prevents that from happening and from you going off cycle, while maintaining some music box. Now, check the left vent again. If no one's there, great, just wait until the next 2-second interval and continue as normal. If Toy Chica is there, first check if Toy Bonnie has moved into the right vent. If Toy Bonnie is there, then you're just dealing with a case 2. If Toy Bonnie isn't there, wind the box starting on 2 seconds up to 4.99 seconds. This should keep you roughly on cycle while maintaining the box. You might be asking yourself why you don't die in this situation, and that's because of the way the vent animatronics are coded. You see, out of the 3 vent animatronics, the only one that directly jump scares you and ends your game right out of the vent is Toy Chica. Because of this, Toy Chica has a kill timer that starts once she enters the vent blind spot. Toy Chica can only jump scare you if she's been waiting in the vent for 6 seconds and then you pull up the cameras. And because we watched her enter the vent blind spot on the last 5-second interval, we can wind until 4.99 risk-free. But what about Balloon Boy and Mangle? Wouldn't they be able to enter on the same interval as Toy Chica? Actually, no. You see, Mangle and Balloon Boy don't have a kill timer. They just enter the moment they're in the vent blind spot and the cameras are up. This would seem really unfair, as they could just enter while you're winding the box. So, to circumvent this, Scott programmed Mangle and Balloon Boy to only be able to move into the vent blind spot when the cameras are up. Meaning, we only have to watch for Toy Chica in this situation. If you're able to master these 5 cases, FNAF 2's 1020 becomes extremely consistent. The only thing that can still cause you to fail is insanely bad RNG from Toy Bonnie, which, because I am the unluckiest FNAF player in the world, of course happened not once, but twice today. I had been doing attempts all day, and some of them were actually getting pretty deep, but for some reason, I just kept failing on FNAF 2.
Move it. Move it. Move it, motherfucker. Move it. Again! Again with you! Swear to God, what is my luck? What is that? 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, move it. 7, 8, move it. 9. My fucking God, my fucking God, my fucking God, my fucking God. My fucking God, that's 1 in 512!
Though I started to realize something. Through playing FNAF 3, 5, and 6 over and over again, I was starting to get better at those 3 games. So I thought about changing the order around for day 3. At this point, I was almost never losing in Sister Location, and rarely losing in FNAF 6. I was playing FNAF 3 as perfect as I possibly could be, but the RNG was still unavoidable, so that had to stay as the first game. But instead of playing Sister Location in 6 right after 3, I'd instead play 2 right after 3. With the new order of 3, 2, 5, 6, 4, 1, I knew that if I could just get past the big 4, this challenge would finally be over. With my new order, I got off for the day and would pick it back up on day 3. Day 3 started off showing once again why I am the unluckiest FNAF player to ever touch these games, and it was really starting to wear me down. Literally, take a look at what was happening in FNAF 3. I was reaching my breaking point, and I honestly didn't know if I could continue this challenge any further. The Big 4 was genuinely starting to look impossible. Now, throughout this video, I've always talked about the Big 4 or getting through the Big 4, but I haven't explained why FNAF 4 and 1 are so free. Everyone knows that FNAF 1's 420 is stupid easy. You just set your camera on camera 4B and do the light check camera flip loop. But you might be wondering why I have FNAF 4 placed this far back. Well, let me introduce you to the FNAF 4 420 strategy. The first thing to understand for this strategy is AI caps. In other FNAF games, most notably FNAF 2, the animatronics AI values aren't truly 20 AI. Most are capped at 15 with some special case exceptions. This means that even on 1020, there's still some RNG involved. However, in FNAF 4, the only AI cap is Freddy, who is capped at 6 AI. Freddy doesn't move throughout the entire night, so his AI just makes his timer count down a bit faster. So, for Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy, we know for a fact that on every single movement opportunity, they are always going to move. Movement intervals in FNAF 4 are always exactly 5 seconds. So we can accurately predict exactly where Bonnie and Chica will be at any point during the night. You see, on every 5-second interval, Bonnie and Chica will always move forward, no matter what. But on every 10-second interval, they can either move forward or backward, with an equal chance for each. So now, let's look at both Bonnie and Chica's paths separately. Bonnie will start in the center living room, then move to the left hall corner, then the left hall, then the left door. Now, remember earlier when I said that Bonnie and Chica randomly move forwards or backwards? Well, that only applies on 2 of these squares. Bonnie can't move backwards when he's in the center living room because he's already as far back as possible. And he can't move forwards when he's at the door because he's already as close as possible. And it's these 2 situations which make this entire strategy possible. We know for a fact that if Bonnie is at a door starting at 5 seconds, he will be gone by 10 seconds, and we can go up to that door and clear him from the hallway. This means that as long as you never trigger any failed movements in the center living room by shutting the door or flashing the hallway on a 5-second interval, Bonnie will never be at the door on an interval from 0 seconds to 5 seconds. This movement pathing is the exact same for Chica with the difference of the kitchen. You might think that having an extra room would offset Chica and make this strategy not work, but she's functionally the exact same as Bonnie in this instance. Once she moves from the center living room, she can never return to that square until she's cleared from the flashlight. So, Bonnie moving back into the center living room is functionally the same as Chica moving into the kitchen, meaning this strategy works the exact same for her. So, if we start a timer, then flash the bed until 8 seconds, and make sure that we reach the left door after the 10-second interval, we know for a fact that Bonnie will not be at the left door and we can flash risk-free. Then, we simply go back to the bed, flash the bed until the next 8-second interval, then go to the right door and repeat for the entire night. Though it isn't that simple. Sure, Bonnie and Chica might be totally free, but we still have to deal with Foxy. Foxy will start in the center living room like Bonnie and Chica, then start running to each hall corner on 5-second intervals, making this sound. On every movement he makes, he has a 90% chance to go to the opposite corner and a 10% chance to enter the hallway. When he enters the hallway, he'll play a louder running sound. If you end up going to the opposite door of where he's at when he's in the hallway, he will enter your closet. We don't want Foxy getting in the closet ever, as it would mess up our existing strategy for the night. So we want to make sure that we always clear him from the hallway. If at any point you hear Foxy enter a hallway, disregard the current loop you're in and go back to that hallway to clear him. Even if that means going to the same door twice. You can only get jump scared by Bonnie and Chica if you've gone to the same door 3 times in a row, then faced the bed. So you don't need to sacrifice your loop for Foxy. We've already determined that Bonnie and Chica will only be at the doors for 5 seconds at a time, and they'll only enter the room to jump scare you on 420 mode after they've been waiting at the doors for a cumulative 12 seconds. Meaning that in order to do this, they'd have to go back to the door 3 separate times. With this strategy, the first 4 hours of 420 mode are made pretty simple. But what about Nightmare? Nightmare is known for being extremely unforgiving with his strict timers and laugh RNG. But what if I told you that a brand new strategy has been discovered that reduces most of Nightmare's RNG? Shout out to Brayden for bringing this one up in the Discord server. To understand this strategy, we first need a basic understanding of Nightmare. Nightmare will start in the center living room, then begin running between the corners of the hall, making sound cues to indicate where he is. He has a 50% chance to silently enter the hallway or move to the opposite corner of the hallway. Since Nightmare's AI is 20 on this night, he'll always succeed on every single movement that he makes. The moment that you stop hearing sound cues, immediately run to whatever side he's on and shut the door. Don't even bother flashing the flashlight to make sure he's there, as this will just waste time on his already strict kill timer. Nightmare's gameplay in the halls is pretty strict, but it is always winnable with enough skill. However, Nightmare's laughs are where the RNG factor comes in. You see, when Nightmare laughs, it indicates that he's teleported to the bed of the closet. And you need to either flash him on the bed or close the closet doors to get rid of him. However, these laughs can sometimes be fake, and Nightmare will actually just stay in the hallways. If you guess wrong on one of these laughs, you're likely to die. Now, here's how you can accurately guess if a laugh is fake or not. Whenever you're running from door to door tracking Nightmare, stare at the timer. Keep all of your focus on it. The moment Nightmare laughs, you need to know exactly where the timer was when it happened. Fake laughs have a 10% chance to happen on 10-second intervals. So, if a laugh happens anytime that isn't a 10-second interval, the laugh is real and you should check the bed in the closet. Now, if the laugh is real, you have to account for two different situations, as Nightmare has an equal chance to go to the bed or the closet on a real laugh. If he goes to the closet, nothing changes and the intervals are the exact same. But if Nightmare goes to the bed, the timer for fake laughs is now paused, meaning that fake laugh intervals will now be offset. For example, if Nightmare does a real laugh at 4:32 and you clear him from the bed at 4:37, he was on the bed for 5 seconds, meaning that the fake laugh intervals are now on 5-second intervals instead of 10-second intervals. Now, just repeat the same strategy from earlier with new fake laugh intervals. Now, Nightmare can still do a real laugh on the interval for a fake laugh, and in this situation, we can't really do much but guess how we normally would. But the chance of this happening is super low, so this strategy definitely increases the consistency of the Nightmare portion of this night. Overall, this FNAF 4 strat is really consistent unless you get really, and I mean really bad RNG. Now, back to how the runs were going. I was starting to really rage out.
The unluckiest player in video gaming history. The unluckiest player in video gaming history. The unluckiest player in video gaming history. That is the Bones5 YouTube channel on YouTube!
But after a few hours of attempts, things started picking up. FNAF 3 started with a couple close calls in the vents, but I was able to get a win with Springtrap in a comfortable Camp 5. FNAF 2 was a bit tricky, but through my knowledge of exactly what to do in every single case, it went down. In Sister Location, things got scary. Ballora was camping my door, and because I had lost runs to her previously, I was playing really safe here, resulting in a super close power out win. FNAF 6 started out a bit scary with the advertising tasks. With it being the last of the big four, I was trying to play super careful here. Luckily, I managed to get a big grouping of animatronics on one side, so I took advantage and dropped an audio lure to keep them there while spamming the shorter tasks.
New PV. New PV. New PV. Okay.
You played right into our hands.
Shh.
It was done. After about 15 hours over the course of 3 days, the Big Four had finally been completed. I couldn't believe it. The rest of this run was a complete cakewalk. All I had to do was deal with Nightmare, and this horrible challenge would finally be over.
It's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Shh, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay.
My sacred paper emissary jutsu has come undone. I didn't anticipate needing this much chakra. But at least Madara
is dead.
How are you not dead? I ran the simulations over and over. I was sure this would work. You should be dead.
The Izanagi, an Uchiha forbidden jutsu, where the user sacrifices sight and that eye to tie illusion and reality together. Only those who possess the powers of both the Uchiha and the Senju can perform it.
No! Why? Why, Foxy? Why? No! Foxy! Where's the chance at the 1 in 100?
Now, let me pause here for a second. You may be wondering why this 19-year-old grown man is freaking out over the silly bear game. After this death, I took a step back and I took a long break. I'm gonna be real with you guys, when I make these videos, I literally put everything I have into them. This channel, this community, this was my dream for so many years. I don't work with anyone outside of a few artists or some of my homies for some short edits. Everything I do and edit in these videos, I do by myself. I'm not upset over dying in the game. I'm upset because this is just more and more time that I have to spend before I can actually start working on the video. When I was talking to one of my artist friends, we came up with a good analogy for this. Imagine being a comic book artist with a deadline that you have to fulfill. Making this comic is your dream, but you can only work on that comic if you jump through a shitload of RNG gates and play absolutely perfect on top of that. It's really hard to put a video together without an endpoint, and if I'm being real, I choose challenges that are actually pretty easy, all things considered. FNAF 4 without doors only took me 2 hours. The multi-FNAF video only took me a day. These challenges may have been difficult for a bit, but they weren't hindering my time, really only taking 1 day to complete at most, giving me the rest of the week to plan, write, and edit that video. But here, I had already put 15 hours into this challenge to get past the big 4, and the one time that I finally got through, after scraping through sister location in FNAF 6, I die to Nightmare Foxy, who managed to hit a 1 in 100 chance by moving into the same hallway twice. What's worse, I could have lived. You can survive 420 with Foxy in the closet, or I could have prevented him from getting in the first place by not just turning to the bed. But I wasn't ready. I hadn't prepared for something this rare, and because I didn't expect it, I panicked. I was so deep in the run. To lose now is to lose 15 hours of progress. 15 hours of grinding to get this far.
Hello everybody. Now here I'm going to explain the cycles of a challenge run. I wanted to do this in a better location. I didn't want to just like sit in the dungeon, if you will, where I'd been at for the past 3 days doing the Fnaflocke. So I've rode my motorcycle up to the Tree of Life. Beautiful ass location, am I right? So we're gonna explain this here so you can take a break from all the camera flips, the AI, the static, just enjoy the view. Channel your inner Taoist, you know, just chill out. So if you're like a speedrunner, you play max modes, Geometry Dash is another good example, just something that you do where you grind for like one attempt where you win, right? You're not grinding for progress, you're grinding for a win, okay? this will apply to you. So this is a cycle that has 3 stages, right? Stage 1 is when you're content. So in stage 1, you're okay with pretty much anything that happens. You get a 10-second Toy Bonnie in the vent, who gives a shit? It doesn't matter. You get a weird-ass Foxy offset and he kills you, who cares? Some other bullshit happens, you don't care. You don't care about anything, really. You can laugh it off and you can just keep going with your day. It doesn't really emotionally, mentally affect you yet, right?
Dog, what? What? What is the play? What is the play? Oh my god! I had 4 dots, motherfucker. Whoa. What could I have done?
And then you get to stage 2. Now, stage 2 is what I like to call tweaking. Stage 2 is when you just start raging out all the time.
Dude! I can't do this!
And once you reach this stage, you're angry at pretty much everything. Like, the smallest thing will make you mad. Toy Bonnie stays in the vent for more than 2 seconds, you're crashing out. You're yelling, you're screaming, and this is the worst stage to be in. When you're in stage 2, all you want to do is finish the challenge. Just get it over with, get it done, you know? So when you get caught with some horrible RNG really deep into a run, that's when the Nightmare Foxy incident happens, right? And that's kind of what causes that. And once you crash out so bad, you've pretty much emotionally barred yourself off from everything. And this is when you reach stage 3. Stage 3 is when you spend so much time in this challenge and you've raged so hard that you don't feel anything anymore. Like at this point, you don't care about anything. You could win, no reaction. You could lose on 5 AM on FNAF 1, no reaction. Nothing changes, right?
Hi.
And at this point, you're just pretty much emotionally mute. You can't react to anything. And the only way to get out of this stage is to either, I don't know, just do something you enjoy, take a break, or in my case, streaming fixed it. But like being in stages 2 and 3 is completely miserable, especially stage 2. So you want to do everything you can to get back to stage 1. Point being, take breaks. Don't do what I do, or what I did for the first half of this challenge, where I just kind of sat there for 3 days straight. Take breaks and make sure that you're all right, because it sucks when you crash out that bad and you're just emotionally mute for a while. So take breaks and enjoy the view, dude. It's a nice day outside. Don't be in the dungeon. Be out here chilling. Look at these clouds, dude. Tree life is beautiful. I gotta play FNAF 3. Damn it.
Day 4 was the point where I was just beaten into the ground over and over and over again. This was the stage 3 day. Honestly, I really did not know what to do at this point. I woke up and immediately started grinding runs, but I was finding it hard to even get past Aggressive Nightmare. Literally, these were the file names for the recordings in the morning. Just so many stupid moments with Springtrap that it was honestly so disheartening. Normally, I'd have like a 30% win rate with Springtrap before today, but that was starting to look more like 10, even 5%. And I honestly just couldn't do it anymore. I legitimately thought that this would be one of the challenges that I really just couldn't do. But then I finally got an idea. You see, I had tried to curb the boredom of FNAF 3 all day. But when you're grinding FNAF games, you can't really listen to music or YouTube videos in the background because sound cues matter. So I decided to stream my attempts. And I cannot express enough how much of a difference this made. Having a chat of, hold up, 900 concurrent viewers, give it up for the stream, dude, that were all supporting this challenge finally gave me a different look on things. I had been stressing over and over and over again that I wasn't going to finish this challenge in time, and I'd never get a run to FNAF 4 again. But when I was just interacting with my community, it didn't feel that way. And I couldn't believe it, but I was honestly having fun. I had even made it to the 4th game in the run, which in this case was Sister Location, and I lost a bonnet, but I didn't really feel bad about it whatsoever. It was honestly crazy seeing how much the Nightmare Foxy death had hurt, but now I was able to finally take a step back and realize that people genuinely don't care when the video comes out, so long as it's a good video. Not only that, but thanks to Braden and Shooter in the chat, I was able to find some strategy optimizations for 2 and 3. I figured out that I was only winding slightly too late on FNAF 2, which caused more Toy Bonnie deaths because of only winding 6 ticks. This was also when I discovered the maintenance panel strategy that I mentioned earlier in the FNAF 3 portion of this guide. I may not have won the challenge on day 4, but I finally didn't feel horrible waking up again to play more FNAF 3. I had come full circle and was back at stage 1 of the cycle again. It was easy to laugh off deaths or stupid mistakes, and I felt that I was finally mentally ready to finish this challenge. Even though I had a good mentality going into day 5, the big 4 were still just as unforgiving. But that stream had really helped out, as I wasn't getting angry with anything. Come on, don't end it here. This has been the craziest game ever. No, dude. Why? That should have been a win. That game was so cool. That should have been a win. Of course, being the unluckiest FNAF player in the world, I had my moments, but it wasn't as bad as some of the earlier days. It was also at this point that I started to change the order of the games around a bit. I added FNAF 4 to the big 4, starting the big 5. And at this point, aside from FNAF 3's RNG, I was equally likely to fail on every other game just as much. So I just started randomizing the order after FNAF 3. That way I could remain equally practiced on every single game throughout the runs. And this seemed to be paying off. In day 5, I had more runs to games 4 and 5 than I ever had before, but I just couldn't seem to clutch out that win. If I ended up playing FNAF 6 as my game 5, I'd miss a sound cue or get some super crazy RNG that I wasn't ready to deal with. If I ended up playing Sister Location as my game 5, the nerves would boil over and I would die to a stupid mistake. But there was one game that I was super consistent in and never got nervous playing, and that was FNAF 2. I ended up starting a game with FNAF 4 as actually first in the order. I know, it's kind of weird, right? Then 3, then 5, then 6. All I had to do was clutch out my best game and I'd be home free in FNAF 1.
Stage 3 is when you spend so much time in this challenge and you rage so hard that you don't feel anything anymore.
This is why you just don't flash the hallway until you hear the meme noise. It just seemed like I couldn't break that game 5 barrier. I had been doing attempts all day, and unfortunately I had to call it quits for day 5. But my mentality was good, and my whole community was still cheering me on. I may not have won on day 5, but with a major improvement in consistency, I think I was finally ready going into day 6. The moment I woke up on day 6, I was ready to play. I really hadn't felt motivation like this since the first day of the challenge. On the very first run of the day, I had a run all the way to game 5, which in this case was FNAF 6, taking a death to getting sandwiched by Molten Freddy and a different animatronic. Since FNAF 6 was giving me problems, I changed the order around to 6, 3, 5, 4, 2, 1. With 5 total game 5 losses and 6 days of grinding under my belt, I took one final death to Scrap Trap. Everyone, on May 31st at 12:42 p.m., I made history.
It's done! It's over! Yes! It's over! It's over! It has been 6 days! Yes!
If you'd like to view that full run, uncut and unedited, the proof for this challenge is on the second channel. This was the hardest challenge that I've ever done on this channel. Going into this video, I thought I'd be done this challenge in 15 hours at most, but no, not at all. After adding up the recordings I've made, this challenge took me 24.8 hours. And I am proud to present, this is the first ever challenge that I will give a 10 out of 10 on the difficulty scale. Prior to starting this challenge, I had only ever beaten Aggressive Nightmare and Sister Locations 1020 one time, and I really underestimated how hard and unforgiving these modes can be when they're all placed in a row. I thought that because I had beaten Blood 720 and made some progress on PMAC, that my skill would carry me through these vanilla max modes. But that wasn't really true. I still had so much to learn. To my knowledge, this is a world's first. I don't believe anyone has ever done this before, but if someone has, please comment below. I'd love to see it. With that said, before we end the video, I have a big announcement regarding UCN. If you're an artist and would like to sign up for the UCN animation project, please join my Discord as the storyboard is now complete and signups will be going out soon. With that said, thank you for watching this monster of a video. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. The next video will either be the long anticipated UCN guide as mentioned before, or part 2 of the technical FNAF iceberg. So look forward to that. Regardless, have a great rest of your day or night. Peace.